this thing right here.
Main driving force behind your motivation for, say, climbing the ladder with each career move? Or do you have a driving force?
Uh, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. That's Nicole and the girls, right? Like everything I do is for my wife and my kids, and wanting to give them, uh, you know, a great life and different experiences. So yeah, hands down, that's easily the reason for it.
All right. Well, then following that, then you've had to move a lot for your job. Did you ever question like any of your moves, or question if you should go
Yeah,
somewhere because of your
yeah.
family?
So first I'll say, I've been fortunate. I've not had to move. I've wanted to move, and I think there's a huge difference there with wanting to make some of these leaps, if you will. And when I think about each of the moves, um, I think of just there are glaring positives to it. Like leaving New York and going to Atlanta. I would have never met Nicole. Leaving Atlanta and going to Maryland. Um, you know, that was an opportunity to bring Nicole back to her family. I would not have met you. Um, and then the biggest leap, the scariest leap really was leaving Maryland to go to San Diego, going to the West Coast, not having any family there. But again, career wise, it was a great move. But I would tell you that because we had no family there, that move in particular brought Nicole and I closer together than we had ever been at any point in our marriage. So it was an incredibly positive experience from that regard too. Um, and now Chicago, Chicago is a really, I think the story is still obviously just getting going, but I would expect it's off to a great start, and it's a different experience for us, my kids, to be in the city versus the burbs. So, yeah, it hasn't been hard. Just these moves have been choices that we have made together, Nicole and I. I've not made any. I think, going through adversity before helped me immensely, right? You've gotten to know me, and one of my favorite movies is The Departed, right? And there's a scene in that movie where Leo DiNardo, his character is with the shrink, and he says to her, basically, if you see my hand, my hand does not shake. I could be in a room with killers, and my hand does not shake. And I think that, going through the 9/11, going through the unrest, the riots, getting into COVID, it was extremely emotional. But at the same time, I felt an obligation to the people that I worked with to maintain a level of, for lack of a better term, a level of coolness, if you will, right? I didn't want the team to experience panic, uncertainty, as much as I could control it, because I felt like if I lost it, then everyone else would have felt that, right? So how did I deal with it? I mean, honestly, we dealt with it together, right, Brian? Like the team going from, a big team to a small group of people. That was extremely hard, extremely emotional. That was probably one of the hardest things to ever do. Um, and try to do it in a way that you could sustain the hotels and build something that people had something to come back to. Um, and, you know, going through that with everyone, um, required a great deal of, again, you've heard me say this plenty of times, right? The most valuable resource in this world is time. And we don't get that back, right? So giving my time to everyone as much as I could to be there for them through that time, I think played a big role in it. I've always been analytically strong, so I could keep a pulse on what was happening from a business perspective. That honestly, that was the easy part, right? Trends and all the things in our business, RevPAR and all that. All that's honestly the easy part. The fun part is the differentiation, the positioning. The hard part is, making sure that the people you work with are motivated, cared for, feel like they have a sense of purpose. And I feel like we did that during the pandemic. I felt like that small group, talked a lot over video, obviously. But it gave me the opportunity to really do things that I hadn't done in a long time because there were so many layers. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but I'm very, very proud of how we managed that. I think we did some incredible things that we get recognized for as a team in the company because of how we.
This will be my last COVID question, maybe ever on this podcast. Quite frankly, I try not to mention COVID a lot. I go out of my way not to talk about it. Did COVID? How did COVID change you? Did it change you professionally?
Yes.
And, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yes. All right. So I'm not embarrassed to tell you. I mean, you knew me, Brian, right? When I was, nearly 60 pounds heavier. Right. So let's COVID taught me self-care, and it changed my life in that regard, right? I was always that guy that would get to the office at 6 a.m., grind, because that was my time. If I got there early, I could bang out all my work and then make myself available to the team. And, I did that for years. But the sacrifice was honestly, my health. COVID gave me that time back. I wasn't making that drive into the office. There wasn't all of the customer appointments and meetings, internal and all of that. So I got just a ton of time back. And so what did I do with it? Started to exercise.
Got a pill time.
And so COVID taught me self-care for sure. And I can't see myself, knock on wood, ever going back to that place where I don't prioritize my well-being above the work. So having my first, and I still consider them both to be mentors, right? But my first mentor, really has meant a lot to me because he taught me, gave me the core foundation of who I am as a leader, right? His, rule 101 is treat people how you want to be treated, let people do their jobs, be a launching pad, not an obstacle. Just gave me some real great tips, and is still someone I'll call today if I feel like I'm in a situation where I need a second opinion on something. The second person that I consider a mentor, I tell you, taught me two things. One, emotional intelligence. I mean, this guy, I gotta tell you, just was a class act with how he treated everyone. Even if you were doing a terrible job, I never saw him lose his cool. And you know, he would tactfully do his best to try to get you to succeed, and you know, making a change was a last resort, but one he would do if he felt like he had to. But he also was a father of girls, and you know, moved around a lot, and so he was a big resource for me. Whereas the other guy has pretty much stayed put in the Northeast. The other guy has moved around a lot, more than me, and his wife has been a resource to Nicole, you know, because she's been there, done that. And, you know, it just so happens that, you know, he's got daughters too. And so not only from a professional perspective, but also a personal perspective, they've both been enormous for me. Now, as I think about myself and as I grow, there's an added layer to it, right, Brian? Like, you know, there's not a lot of people who look like me who do what I do, you know? And so obviously, you know, I work hard at trying to help people reach their goals, whether it, you know, folks like yourself and Jeanna. There's a added layer for me to show young people of color that these commercial jobs are attainable, right? Our business has just, you know, when I first started doing this, a part of the reason why I didn't do it, why it took 2 years to convince me to move into sales, is because I didn't see anyone that looked like me. That's the God's honest truth. I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and I didn't think I would belong. I didn't think I would fit in, and I just didn't have the confidence. You know, and so me mentoring young people, whether they look like me or not, it's important to make sure that, to be an example, so that, you know, more people who look like me give it a shot. You know, they don't just go the operations route. They're open to going into the commercial space. And then people who don't look like me, you know, hopefully I'm doing the job well enough that they would look at a person of color and give them, you know, not let unconscious bias rule them out. So, but you know, there are things you experience as a person of color coming up in this game that you can't put on paper, that you can't say out loud, and that I wish someone would have said to me. And so I make a point to, you know, make sure I'm having those conversations with young people, to make sure they don't make mistakes that I've made, or they benefit from the experiences that I've had, in order to, you know, elevate and do well in this game. The numbers are very important. But I think I view success. So there's two forms, in my opinion, right? I could go on, as you know, I could go on and on about the analytical success and the numbers. The other part, honestly, is, you know, folks like Jeanna, folks, you know, when I look across the landscape and I see other directors, national salespeople, that I have been fortunate enough to work with and help mentor and help get them to where they want to be. That is probably, that's the best thing for sure. That's looking out and seeing 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people that I have personally played a role in their growth. That's pretty cool. and then seeing that tree evolve from there, that's pretty wild. It ages you, but because I like to think that I'm still pretty young, but when I see that, that's pretty cool. But it always comes back to the numbers, and that will never change. I think, again, the command of the numbers is what allows me to be calm, the way that I am, right? Because I can retain, I have all of that information, locked in, and it allows me to do other things. It allows me to be with customers. It allows me to be with my team. It allows me to focus on growing people, because I have such command of the numbers.
Yeah, it's for my peoples in the streets. And this thing right here